Microphone test. Good morning, everyone. We have a quorum of the Planning Committee in the room, so I'll call the committee to order and welcome you to the 57th meeting of the Planning Committee, and this is Tuesday, the 16th of July. If you wish to speak to the committee with respect to any of the items that appear on today's agenda, if you haven't registered in advance or filled in a white request to speak form that's located at the table right beside the door under the large Ottawa sign, if you would do so and bring that white sheet to the committee assistant to my right, we'll make sure you get on the agenda to speak to the committee with respect to the items that you wish to speak to. There is also a sheet at that table that will allow you, if you can't wait, to have your item heard and speak to us in person if you'd like to fill in written comments that will form part of the public record for today's meeting. Now, this is a public meeting to consider the proposed zoning bylaw amendments listed as items 5 to 8 on today's agenda. For the items listed above, only those who make oral submissions today or written submissions before the amendments are adopted may appeal the matter to the Ontario Municipal Board. In addition, the applicant may appeal the matter to the Ontario Municipal Board if Council does not adopt an amendment within 120 days after receipt of the application for zoning and 180 days for an official plan amendment. Une feuille de commentaires est disponible à l'entrée pour toute personne désirante soumettre des commentaires écrits concernant les modifications. Again, a comment sheet is available at the door for anyone who wishes to submit written comments. So, members of committee, before we move into a consent agenda, I'm just going to advise you that we have two additional items of business that we'll deal with under other business. We have to and we'll have to suspend the rules to do so. One of them is to consider to table two additional schedules to the OP that we tabled on July 25th. They were inadvertently omitted. And the other is to consider a motion from the Built Heritage Subcommittee that will rise so we can deal with that. So those two items will be, if you're wondering, will be dealt with under other business. Maybe. So, an application, so let's go see if we can have a consent agenda. I don't have any regrets. I assume we'll, are there any declarations of interest? Okay. The minutes 56, 25th of June, 2013. Are those minutes carried? Carried. Okay. We're going to go through a consent agenda to see if we can deal with some of the items that are on the agenda. Item number 1 is an application to alter 106, 116 Spark Street, 111 to 113 Queen Street, located in the Spark Street Heritage Conservation District and designated under Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act. I don't have anyone registered.
I'm surprised you don't have this information, because this was deferred to September 5th for Built Heritage last week. And it's because when the agenda went live for Built Heritage, we had one application before us, and it changed within a matter of days, and there was no opportunity for the public. So we deferred it to, yes, because you're not out, you're just supporting what we did.
Right. So the recommendation will be to defer this item to
September 5th.
September 5th.
September the 10th for planning.
So September 10th for planning, right?
Yes.
So we're deferring it to a time specific, which would be September 10th.
And this is the one that actually is the reason why we have in the other business, the Podolsky motion.
Okay, we have. Is there anyone, I don't have anyone registered to speak to the committee with respect to deferral. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to the committee with respect to deferral of item number 1 to September the 10th? Nope. Okay.
Carried.
Is deferral carried to September the 10th?
Carried.
Carried. Okay. Okay. Item number 2 is the designation of the British America Banknote Company, 975 Gladstone Avenue, under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act.
This is moved also to...
You're right, to
Deferred.
October the 10th.
It's going to October 22nd to Build Heritage, I believe.
October 22nd?
Is it?
So I
Build
have...
Heritage, the 22nd is the Planning Committee.
Okay, so we're going, so this will go to, the Bill Heritage Subcommittee approved deferral of this item to October 10th meeting, which means it rises to us on October
22nd.
October 22nd. So the motion is to defer
And this was at the request of them.
consideration of this item to the October 22nd meeting of the committee. Okay. I don't have anyone registered to speak to the committee with respect to this item. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to the committee with respect to item number 2? Okay. Members of committee, the recommendation is to defer the consideration of this item to the October 22nd meeting of the committee. Is that carried? Carried. Okay. Item number 3 is an application to demolish a designated building and application for new construction at 325 Dalhousie Street, a property located in the Byward Market Heritage Conservation District and designated under Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act. We have a speaker in support and a speaker in opposition, so we will hold that item and come back to it. Item number 4 is an application to alter the former Carleton County Courthouse and former Carleton County Registry Office, now together known as Arts Court, properties designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act according to the plans received from the City of Ottawa on June 10th, 2013. We have a number of speakers in support and one in opposition, so we will... Sorry. Okay. Yeah, one doesn't... Items 4 and 5. Ms. Godin? You're opposed to 4. I'm assuming you're opposed to 4 and 5. It is, because 5 gives the zoning to do what they want. 4 allows us to vary the Heritage Act to allow them to do what they're proposing to do under the zoning. And you're opposed to the project as it's currently conceived, is that correct? Okay. So listen, why don't we take 4 and 5 together, and we'll deal with it, so we'll allow you to speak to both of those items. We'll deal with them as a package together, and that way you'll be able to speak to, if you have heritage... Oh, we have another one. Okay. Wow. So we have more coming. So we'll have a number that you'll be able to speak in opposition. So I'm going to hold items 4 and 5, and we'll allow you to speak to those together. We do have Mitchell Hall from KPMB and Graham Gleddy, who's a resident at 200 Rideau, and the CEO of the Ottawa Art Gallery, and Peter Honeywell, the Executive Director of the Council for the Arts in Ottawa, who are in support and wish to speak to the committee. So we'll deal with those 2 items together to allow you to voice your opposition. Okay, moving on. Item number 6 is the zoning at 17, 19, and 23 Robinson Avenue. We have... Okay. We have one person registered in agreement and one in opposition. So we're going to have to, and that's, can't pronounce it, it's Wendy and I don't know how, I can't read the last name is. Oh, Deshane? Is that right? Are you here? Okay, you're there. Okay, and you're in opposition to the recommendations. Okay, so we're going to hold that, and you want to speak, and I'm assuming you want to, in voicing those oppositions, you want to speak to the committee. Okay. Well, your right's going to come up. You're either going to be able to speak to the committee or not. Well, it's your right to speak to the committee, so we're going to hold that item and come to it, and you can be a delegation. Okay, item number 7 is the zoning at 5431 Fernbank Road. We have one person registered to speak to that in agreement, Mr. Weiss and Mr. Pierce. Mr. Pierce is here. We do have a motion that we need to clean up some wording that Councillor Cadre is going to move, and that's a staff-generated motion. Mr. Weiss, are you satisfied if we carry that item that you don't need to speak to committee? Yes. Right. Okay, so you know about the motion and you're satisfied with it, and you don't need to speak to the committee as long as we're prepared to carry that motion and the item. Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Weiss. Nice to see you. Haven't seen you before the committee in quite some time. On the item is Councillor. Oh.
Could we just read out the motion? I know it's a technical amendment, but for the audience.
It's on the screen, but sure we can. We're moving that whereas recommendation in the report erroneously missed one of the existing zones that the land is being rezoned from, that being R3Z 168-4 zone, be resolved that the recommendation of the staff report be replaced with the following. That Planning Committee recommend Council approve an amendment to the zoning bylaw 28250 to change the zoning of part of 5431 Fernbank Road from Development Reserve DR and Residential Third Density Subzone Z Exception 1864-R3Z Exception 1864 to Residential First Density Subzone Z R1Z 1863 Residential Third Density Subzone Exception, and they'll write there are no numbers there now, but they will be when the bylaw is passed. Residential Fourth Density Subzone Z, R4Z, and Open Space O1, as shown in Document 1 and detailed in Document 2. And be it further resolved that pursuant to the Planning Act, subsection 3417, no further action be given. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So is Councillor Cotter's motion carried? Carried. On the item, is it carried? Carried. You're welcome, Mr. Weiss. Item number, okay, that's item number 7. Item number 8 is 460 Saint Laurent Boulevard. We have a number of speakers in opposition and in support with conditions. So we'll hold that item and come back to it. So we're going to hold item 8, which is the zoning at 460 Saint Laurent Boulevard. We have the last one is cash in lieu of parking 200 Cooper Street. Ian Young has registered to speak to the committee, but you're happy, Mr. Young, not to speak to the committee as long as we're prepared to carry this item? Okay. Okay. So, but you want to make sure that Diane moves, that someone moves a motion. Now, you want to explain what you're moving it to? Councillor Holmes has asked you to move.
She's asked me to move the motion. I don't have it in front of me. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I apologize.
Do we know what that is?
It's to redirect the funds from the cash in lieu of parking into another.
It's...
Sorry.
Okay.
It's in my inbox? Okay,
No, let's see.
It's in my inbox.
Okay. It's our understanding it's to move it from the current fee to $1,000 a space. Mr. Young, is that your understanding? Okay. That's not, we're going to have to hold it and come back to it, and maybe Councillor Hobbs and Mr. Young, you can get together and determine what the agreement, or what Councillor Holmes had proposed to do, and in order to resolve this issue, as soon as we can figure out what Councillor Holmes wants to bring forward, we'll get you back on the agenda so you don't have to sit here till the last item. So, Councillor Hobbs, can you do that? Perfect. Okay, so we're going to hold item number 9 and come back to it at our earliest opportunity. If we can do the, Councillor Harder, if we can do the other business items, one of them, oh, sorry, did I not have an, oh, sorry. We're going to do 10 and 11. Now I'm cashing the parking lot. Okay. Yes, we could hold it for the fun of it. Item number 10 is sewer expenditures for the Signature Ridge pumping station. I have no one registered to speak to the committee with respect to sewer expenditures for the Signature Ridge pumping station, although we can hold it and talk about it if we like. Just for the fun of it. Yeah. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to the committee with respect to item number 10, sewer expenditures for the Signature Ridge pumping station? Okay. Members of committee, is this item carried? Carried. Okay. Item number 11 is status update planning committee inquiries and motions for the period ending July 9th. I have no one registered to speak to the committee with respect to those items. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to the committee with respect to item number 11? No? Okay, members of the committee, is that item received? Received. Okay, now we'll go to the additional items. One of them is item number 12, and item number 12 is a motion to amend the committee's tabling of the official plan on June 25th. Two schedules were inadvertently omitted. So we need to, Councillor, Councillor Harder, can you move that the rules of procedure be suspended to consider the draft motion? Yes. Okay, thank you. And members of committee, the motion is that it's to receive two schedules because the draft amendment posted on the city's website included policy changes to the text of the official plan, changes to schedules dealing with land use designation, and the addition of the Train, Saint Laurent, and Cedarville secondary plan that establishes maximum business heights for the land within the transit or the TOD plans for these stations. But the secondary plans for Train, Saint Laurent, and Cedarville did not include the attached schedules, I'm assuming those are the height schedules, for the Train and Saint Laurent station. So what we're being asked to do is to table those as well. Is there any questions? Can we carry that item? Carry. Okay. The other piece of business is a request by Councillor Harder to waive a motion that was considered by the Built Heritage Subcommittee. So Councillor Harder is moving that the rules of procedure be suspended to consider a motion from the Built Heritage Subcommittee with respect to the National Capital Commission and the issuance of a letter. Is suspension of the rules carried?
Carried.
Carried. Councillor Harder, do you want to tell us about this?
Yes, please. This came up from our vice chair at the subcommittee, Barry Podolsky, and speaks to the maintenance of properties owned by the NCC, and really it's the reason why we ended up deferring the item. Because it came up during that and we deferred the item, even though Heritage Subcommittee, Built Heritage Subcommittee voted for it, it had to come here for ratification through this process, through waiving the rules. And I sent this out to you all yesterday.
Okay, so, and Mr. Podolsky, as a member of the committee, do you want to come up and add anything to what Councillor Harder has said? Okay. Any other member of committee want to Okay. On the item then, is it carried? Carried. Okay. Councillor Hobbs, let's go back to item number 9. You're moving.
He's moving a motion on behalf of Councillor Holmes to reduce the parking charges for 200 Cooper to $1,000 per space and redirect those funds to a Section 40 agreement for Councillor Holmes' ward.
Section 40,
Section 40, which is,
40? Is that right?
is that right?
What is Section 40, Mr. Mark? Oh, cash and load parking, okay. So it's $1,000 a space. Now,
Yes.
you want to speak to that, or are you in agreement with that? Okay, perfect. I was worried there for a second that you might not be. Okay, good. So, Councillor Hobbs has moved the $1,000 a space. Mr. Young, on behalf of the, or the applicant or the agent, is in agreement. Can we carry that? Is that carried? Carried. There you go. Thank you, Mr. Young. Thank you, Councillor Hobbs. Okay. That, let's go back to item number 3, which has been before us before. Item number 3. There is, I don't think there is one. So, item number 3, we have received some written submissions, and the delegations, if I can just go to them here. Oops, sorry. Other pile of paper. Ms. McKenzie, if you'd like to come up.
Mr. Chair, committee members, Liz McKenzie, vice or co-chair of the Heritage Committee for the Lower Town Community Association. I'd like to make a comment, and I'd like to make a request this morning. The comment is with regard to the infill project. As you probably have seen, there's a hotel to be built. There's a parking space beside it, and now it's been decided to build into that parking space. And rather than see that as an appendage of the hotel, I'd like that to be considered as an infill. It doesn't seem reasonable to me to assume that the proposed new hotel will set the design standard for the whole of that block from York up to George Street. Dalhousie is a main street. It's part of the heritage overlay, and I think that issue should be respected in the design. The official plan is quite clear on it, saying that infill should be sensitive to and compatible with nearby heritage buildings, particularly with respect to scale, size, lot development patterns, setbacks, materials. And there are heritage buildings, the Mercury building at the corner of George and York that was recently restored by Bear Podolsky is a very important feature on the next corner. It would be nice if that feel could be kept along the block somehow. So that's my comment. My request is that we've mentioned this before as well, that in the official plan there are at 1.8.3 targeted strategies. And it says, Council shall consider undertaking the following targeted strategies to implement Downtown Ottawa Urban Design Strategy. It refers to the Eastern Market re-urbanization area, to re-image York and George, which is right, the block that we're talking about, and to strengthen Dalhousie as a main street. Now, I know this is not on the work plan, but my request today is that I get some direction about how the community can move forward to try to get this on the work plan, because I think it's very important.
about the infill side, and then we can deal with the, I'll go to Mr. Moser on the work plan issue.
I'm not exactly clear the question, but in this version of the project which you have in front of you, there is a projection southwards across a former open space. It is 4 stories high with an entrance at grade, with open at grade to allow access to some 4 parking spots. And, you know, the applicant brought the height of the entire building down, but in order to accommodate all the needs of the building, of the hotel, they extended it southward. Again, we looked at it. This is a hard building because it is an anomaly within the district, but we felt that the way that read and the articulation was still consistent with the application that we had previously recommended for approval and council had approved, so we went ahead and supported that extension southward.
Okay. And Mr. Moser, do you want to add anything about the work plan?
Mr. Chair, just as the delegation has said, it's not included in our term of council work plan. Prepared to take it under advisement and look for the next term of council in terms of including it in the work program.
Okay, and that work plan will come up in January to add it in.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, any other questions? Are there any questions for Ms. McKenzie? Thank you very much for your presentation. Mr. Malhotra, if you'd like to come up. What's that? Yes, wow.
Good morning. Just introduce Catherine Grahuta from FOTEN here and Janet Bradley for our legal advice. Some legal questions, I guess, came up when we were at the Heritage Committee last week. We don't need to obviously run through the proposal again, because the committee just saw it a few months ago, but we're just here to speak to why we've come back with this application. After council approved it, there were 2 OMB appeals from the community. So we're back here now with this proposal as part of a process where we're trying to negotiate a settlement through the OMB, to avoid going to the OMB, to try and get this project started as soon as possible. As part of it, involved a substantial change to lower the height down. We're able to deliver a similar project with lower ceiling heights, essentially to lower the entire building. And that's essentially why we're here. Previously the committee and council had essentially approved the removal of everything off the building other than basically the concrete structure. So that's essentially the difference of the proposal at this stage, is that the concrete structure itself is not being saved. Okay. So we're here to answer any questions if there are any.
Members of the committee, are there any questions for Mr. Malhotra? Nope. Mr. Malhotra, thank you for your presentation. Okay, there are no further delegations for item number 3. Councillor Harder is moving that a minor amendment, right?
Very minor, that the words Built Heritage Subcommittee be inserted in recommendation 6. So it would say, as a result, both proposals have been reviewed, and once the outstanding issues have been concluded, and that's further to the conversation you just heard, Claridge will return to the Built Heritage Subcommittee on which of the alternatives will be pursued.
Right. Okay. On the item then, on Councillor Harder's motion, is that carried?
Carried.
Carried. On the item?
Carried.
Carried.
Dissent, Mr. Chair.
Carried. And dissent from Councillor Manette. Okay. Item number 4. We're going to take 4 and 5 together. So, and with this item, members of committee, we do have a presentation. Those are your...
This is lovely. And the dog.
Sure.
Okay, so we're here to talk about two applications today. The heritage approval and a zoning bylaw amendment for Arts Court. So in July 2011, the City Council approved an expansion and redevelopment of Arts Court to accommodate a new Ottawa Art Gallery. These applications today implement this strategy that was approved and includes a museum-quality space for the Ottawa Art Gallery, a 250-seat screening room, a black box theater, and studio classrooms for the University of Ottawa. So the site, highlighted in yellow on the screen, is bounded by Daly, Waller, Nicholas, and Mackenzie King. The site is currently home to the Arts Court complex, which is housed in the former courthouse, and an open space which was formerly the Ottawa Police Station until 1997. Again, we can see the site here in its context on the screen. You can see the Mackenzie King Bridge, the Rideau Centre to the west, Les Suites and the Novotel to the north, Sandy Hill Heritage District to the east, and D&D and Ottawa U to the south. Just a few more images of the site and as it currently sits. The image on the top of the screen is taken from Waller, looking west towards the site. The limits of the site are indicated by the red arrow. Again, the bottom, just looking south, you can see the Ottawa U in the background. And the treed portion on the site is where the former Ottawa Police Station stood. Again, just a few more images. The top one is taken from Daly, looking south on the site. You're beginning to see the registry office to the right of the screen. And at the bottom, this is taken from where Waller meets Mackenzie King, and you can see the jailhouse and the heritage wall and the 1950s addition that was added to the courthouse. Today, this is how the site currently sits, and we mentioned we'll be talking about two applications. So Ms. Coots is going to be talking about this portion of the site, which is the former courthouse and the registry office, which currently houses the Arts Court complex and the Saw Gallery. And after Ms. Coots, I will be talking about the open space highlighted in yellow, which is where the expansion will take place of the Ottawa Art Gallery.
This is in front of you today is an application to alter a designated heritage building. Arts Court is designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Every change to a designated building requires City Council approval. There are two designated buildings within the complex. They're designated separately, the former courthouse and the registry office. This is the fire insurance map from 1912 showing the complex. So here we have the Arts Court, the former courthouse and the former registry building. They were not joined then, but they were subsequently joined in the 1950s to become one building. This is the youth hostel, former jail, which is not included in the project, but it shows the relationship of the two, that it's always been a judicial area with also the other registry office here. Then this was eventually the site of the 50s post office, but it was residential in 1912. This is the courthouse. It was designed by Robert Surtees, a local architect, and constructed in the 1870s. Like many judicial buildings at the time, it was designed in classically inspired, which was often associated with democracy and justice. And the registry office was also designed in the same architectural style. It remains essentially, the front facade remains essentially today as it was when constructed. This was Justice. She's no longer there. And this was the registry office. Over time, the registry office is, that's the next. The registry office, as constructed, had a large pediment, typical of classically inspired buildings, but the roof was popped and it was made into a flat roof building I think in the 1950s when the large addition to the rear of the building took place. This was the Peter Dickinson police station that was constructed in the 50s and then demolished in 1997. So the application, as I mentioned, is to allow the construction of an addition to the Arts Court complex that will be comprised of the new Ottawa Art Gallery, a black box theatre, a 23-story tower, and a link from the designated structures to the new building. So they will all be joined to one another. And here is, again, an aerial view. So this is the Arts Court. As we know it now. This is the former courthouse. This is the former registry building, and this is the addition to the rear that makes them into one large building. And here, and this is also part of the addition. So this is, if you go to the Saw Gallery, this is where you enter off Nicholas. And as you can see, it's very close to the former jail, the youth hostel, but again, not included as part of the application. Here you have, this is, the addition will be comprised of the Ottawa Art Gallery, multi-purpose spaces, the private tower, and a theater here. There is a gap between the heritage buildings and the new buildings that forms an atrium. This is looking from the south to northward, so you see the back of the building. One of the things that's interesting is that noteworthy is that the heritage building has been subsumed by this more recent addition, so you cannot see, you haven't been able to see it since the 1950s from the rear. This is the Ottawa Art Gallery, the tower, the theater space. And this is very important here. One of the concerns was making sure that you could still see the wall, and so this glass area will wrap around so the wall will still be visible. Another view of the, as you can see, very similar, has not changed much since the 1870s, the link to the new complex and then the new complex. This is one of the things that we were concerned with, was that the building would not appear to be crowded, so there was this desire for some kind of an entry, glass entry atrium that would separate the new construction from the old. This is a basic principle of heritage conservation, to make clear the distinction between new and old and to keep the two functions as separate as possible, and that is being accomplished through this glassed-in courtyard. Another view at night. This is again the rear, as you can see, the glass wall here that allows views to the historic wall. One of the other, there's an organizing principle behind this. Classically inspired buildings are very rationally planned and very organized, and the architects use the datum lines and the prominent parts of the courthouse to establish where to put, or as an organizing principle for the design of the new building. So you see the bottom of the pediment carries through to a line to the south, at the bottom of where the tower starts to rise, and the base of the doors is also carried through the garage, the top of the garage entrances. Here are some views, again, from various spots that you will still be able to see the full full youth hostel from the rear. Again, there's the view here, will not be blocked. The views, one cannot deny that the views from Sandy Hill will now be obscured, but they were mostly of the 1950s and 60s annex. After our analysis and the care that was taken to design this large addition, taking its cues from the datum lines and the organization of the former courthouse, and the way that the atrium separates the new from the old, and the clear distinction from new from old, and the use of materials. I'm ahead of myself, but anyway, the recommendations are to approve the application, issue the heritage permit, and delegate authority need for minor design changes. And we support it because it meets the standards and guidelines. It uses the height, form, and massing of the site's cultural heritage resources to establish the location, and the materials are complementary to the rough-cut limestone of Arts Court. Thank you.
Are there questions from members of committee? No? Okay. Let's go to delegations. We have the CEO and Director of the Ottawa Art Gallery, Alexandra Badzak, if she'd like to come up, and Peter Honeywell, if both of you would like to come up. Oh, right up here to the, yep.
I talked very fast.
Thank you for hello. Thank you for allowing us to just very briefly make a few comments about this project. My organization is the Council for the Arts in Ottawa. We're resident in the building, and actually we occupy the oldest heritage piece of the building, which is the registry office. I am delighted with the work that the architects have done to separate out and really, I think, shine a light onto that heritage nature of the building. The idea of giving an atrium to the side of that building, I think, makes it stand out and will make it stand out in a more meaningful way. There's something that I think we should be looking at in the future. I'd like to look at heritage buildings in other cities and how they've been lit in the evening on both levels. The stonework on this building is gorgeous, and I think it should be popped off on that streetscape. We have been, Alex and I have been working on the steering committee for this project. We feel that we have a camaraderie with our city staff, with all the tenants in the building who are working with us on this project. It has never gotten so far. I'm delighted to see it went through the Heritage Review, and I hope that you'll be able to move it forward today. This project is on its way. Alex?
Yeah, I certainly want to reiterate how much work has gone in to getting this project to where it is. On behalf of the Ottawa Art Gallery, I think we have finally come up with a very impressive structure in the right place, coming at the right time for 2017. We're going to have a cultural institution that will tell Ottawa's story at a very important time when Canada is going to be looking at Ottawa very, very closely. It fills an incredible gap for our professional arts in this city. We've worked very hard. I don't think we could have had a better joint architectural team than having Barry Podolsky and Mitch Hall from KPMB. These are people who have worked on the Nature Museum and handled that very sensitively. I know KPMB are architects that work on a majority or a lot of art gallery renovations and expansions in the last 10 years in Canada. We've got a great team. They've worked very hard under very complicated situation, and as Peter said, we haven't come this far before. We're very thrilled that we're at this point, and we hope to see that it is supported.
Now, are there any questions for our two delegations? Thank you very much for your presentation. Patricia Godin, would you like to come up? Go down, Godin, go down. That's one of them, and then I'm going to call him next. If you press the button in front of you there, on the, there you go.
Good morning, bonjour. Mon nom est Patricia Godin. I would like to start by saying a few words about myself. I live at 234 Rideau Street, just a few meters from the project's proposed site. I am an environmentalist, which is to say that I wholeheartedly support densification of the downtown core as long as it's done in a sustainable manner. We have moved downtown because we can walk everywhere, we have access to many wonderful amenities, and we can take the time to breathe. However, while my husband can walk to work, I cannot, as I work in the south end of the city. I take my bike in the summertime and I drive in winter. With regards to this project, I would like first to thank the city for having taken the time to present the project to our community and having moved the presentation to the lounge in our building in an effort to listen to our concerns and to provide us with an explanation. The project is indeed a very nice one, and my husband and I will gladly support it as long as some very basic sustainability issues are addressed. These issues are cumulative effects of traffic, the loss of visitor parking spaces, the loss of public green spaces, and the loss of the horizon. There are also a few more concerns. How can residents trust the city and the planning committee with respect to zoning restrictions? Please let me address these concerns in a bit more details. Let's start with the cumulative effects of traffic. The city is making considerable investments into a downtown tunnel for rapid transit, a metro of sorts. This should provide some help in reining in the future car traffic increase, because without it, there's no doubt that car traffic will increase dramatically in the coming 10 to 20 years, particularly if all of the already planned residential towers get built on Rideau Street, Cumberland, and Dalhousie. This tunnel is wonderful, but does absolutely nothing at all to address the much more significant problem of truck traffic through what was essentially designed originally as a residential area. The intersections of Besserer, Daly, Waller, Rideau, and King Edward were never designed to handle heavy truck traffic. As we increase the population in this very same zone, we are increasing the pedestrian traffic and, directly related, the risk of accidents. The project proposes to add one more truck delivery entrance in that very same zone, in addition to the new garage and the residential cars and traffic. The horrible effects of the construction, the increased traffic, both cars and trucks, have rendered maneuvering on these streets treacherous and plain dangerous. Drivers are impatient and aggressive. They refuse to yield to cyclists, they challenge pedestrians, some drivers make illegal turns, and tourists drive the wrong way on one-way streets all the time. I see it. These are existing problems which will be compounded by this proposed project. Did I mention also that it is very difficult and sometimes nearly impossible to get in and out of our garage, which is located on Besserer on the main truck route right now? At some hours of the day, it's simply not possible to leave the garage and turn south on Cumberland. Another dimension is the parking restrictions. Visitors to downtown don't all come from an area that is accessible from the transit system. Some may be coming in from Quebec or even out of town. These visitors may have to visit many places during the day and wish to the convenience of a car, or they intend to leave later than it is practical with the last public transport option. By continuously increasing the downtown population, the city must also make sure that visitors can park their cars. And now I'd like to mention that I have a few friends that will not visit us anymore because they find it very, very difficult to park and price prohibitive in some cases. I would like now to address the loss of green spaces. Many residents of the downtown core have animals, dogs. The dogs need green spaces to relieve themselves. I was lucky enough, in a sense, that my dog died shortly before I came downtown, so I don't have to try to find a public space for my dog. But the proposed project offers trees located in planters. It's essential that the project offer green spaces that are available and that address the needs of dog owners and their pets as much as the needs of the entire local population. The new green space must be welcoming to all residents, including the residents of the Mission across the street, while not inviting those same residents to unduly invade the same space. This is a tall order, but one that the city must meet if it wants to take away the existing green space as basic in its current form. As basic as it is in its current form. I firmly believe that the city must offer its residents green spaces within a short walking distance. And while the canal is very nice, it's hardly green space until you walk a while south of the Department of National Defense's headquarters, Major General Perks Building. With regards to zoning restrictions, we have made considerable investments when we purchased our condo. One of the things we did prior to making this investment was to review the existing zoning in the area. That is one of the reasons we selected a unit on the top floor where the view to the south end of the city would be unimpeded. Now that the city wants to allow a derogation from its own zoning bylaw of its own volition without even having been asked by potential developer, how can we be sure as taxpayers and citizens that the city will in fact protect our neighborhood, respect and protect the zoning restrictions, and ensure a livable downtown core for all the new inhabitants that it wishes to bring in? Finally, as much as the project is very nice on paper or on presentation, the team is indeed presenting a nice project, but I noticed that the presentation that was given at the condo was peppered with possibilities. During the presentation, they talked about it is possible that it could mimic, it could be. We imagine that, and the intention may be. The reality is that the city does not have a developer, and the final product may only slightly resemble the dream of the project team. The reality is that the developer may ask for an even higher building with different finishes and not so public spaces. This leaves me very unsettled and very concerned with the city's ability to deliver this project in the way that it wants, never mind to deliver a project in the way that it should be delivered. Thank you very much.
If you can just orient me, you bought in the new Claridge building at the corner of Rideau and Cumberland, is that correct?
That's absolutely correct.
Okay. So and this project would be to the west of you?
This project does not, this project does not change my view, not much.
Okay.
But the point I was making is this already, you're doing a zoning change from 17 to 23 stories, even without having a contractor asking for it. Behind my building, we have a nice large parking lot that is currently zoned for 10 stories. If we give a derogation to zoning, the next block over, before anybody even asks for it, what's to say that I'm not going to end up with a 25-story building behind me blocking the only view that I have left? Because I knew when I bought that the Cumberland Street, the two towers were going up, 3 and 4 from Claridge. They're horrendous. They're ugly, even uglier than ours. And they are straight up from the sidewalk with no offset, I guess you could say, because there's no room for offset. There's going to be another building behind that where Dworkenfurs is, and that thing is going to be no offset either. And what's going to happen with the other parking lot, I believe there's another condo building planned for that one. So I look around where we live, and I look and I see towers going up, left, right, and center. I understand densification, and I live part of it, and I don't resent that at all, but I want to make sure that the city does a good job of planning this densification, that we make sure that we don't just put buildings right up against the sidewalk everywhere and blocking all the views, and that we have to respect some level of the height restrictions, and I'm concerned that this is not going to happen in this case.
Mr. Schmidt maybe can talk about some of the zoning on the site and the long-standing secondary plan and building heights in that area.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This area is part of the central area. It's covered by the view protection directions that are set out in the official plan that are really geared to protecting the visual prominence of the parliamentary precinct area. And this is an area that's captured in an area that's referred to as background height control. So there very clearly are limitations with respect to the Arts Court project. The height that's being proposed for the tower is the absolute maximum that would be allowed under both the zoning and the official plan. The parking lot across from the development that the delegation lives in, currently it has a height limitation associated with it, but again, if somebody were to come in asking for a higher profile building, that is something that could be considered within the policy framework of the official plan, and we would have to take a look at it in terms of about what that project is and what that represents. This clearly is an area that contemplates higher profile development. There are heritage attributes, so there's a need to ensure integration with those heritage attributes, which, as you've heard, the department is satisfied is the case with this particular project. There also is a heritage area that is directly to the east of Waller Street, the sort of Sandy Hill area, so there's also consideration that would be given to the relationship of any development with the heritage attributes and characteristics of that area in terms of what might happen around the perimeter.
Okay, just Mr. Schmidt, the height that's being requested here is the maximum height that's allowed under the official plan.
That's correct.
So if I wanted to come in and build a higher, not only do I have to get a zoning change, but I have to amend the official plan, and I'd have to tell you why the official plan policies are wrong.
That's correct, and I would venture to say that the likelihood of success on that type of an initiative is not that great because the NCC takes a very strong interest in the view protections for the parliamentary precinct area, so they would have a very real stake in terms of the implications of what that might be, and that's the reason we put it in the official plan, to make it very clear that that's it, that's all.
Okay. Okay, are there any other questions for the delegation? No? Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Graham Gleddy, if you'd like to come up.
Hello, thank you for letting me speak. I'm sorry, I'm not a public speaker at the best of times. And to be honest, right now, I did not sleep at all last night, not because of this, but I will get to it, but it's very much related to this. I was woken up 5 times last night by trucks, and it is a hell of a place to be living along that truck route. I live at 200 Rideau. So I'll start off. First of all, I'm a great fan of the arts, huge. And I do not want to address the issue of city support for the arts or the arts court itself, the podium, not directly at least. I think the issue is this location and the many issues related to this location, and in particular to a tower in this location. So the first issue is noise in this area. Now, a large number of these people, Bliss, etc., came last Thursday to talk to us, and that was marvelous, and they give their private time at night and all of that. But forgive me if I sound cranky. You guys don't understand. It is fucking hell in that corner. Rideau, Waller, Cumberland. 5 times a night, woken up 10 meters to the to the west of my bed, I have trucks. I mean, my God, air brakes, truck horns. Where do you start? It's a hellish nightmare of noise by truck traffic.
You can express your challenges without using profanity. So
I will try, but wow, it is more than annoying. It is very, very difficult to get a proper sleep. And I'm the type of person, as many are, that once you get woken up, you can't get back to sleep. I have hundreds of neighbors who are in a similar situation. It has a cumulative effect. I've been living there for 4 years. I do not believe that the city, in good conscience, can approve or allow to be built any more units there where people would sleep. Office would be one thing, but where you would have a hotel or a condo building, it is horrible. It is truly horrible. You don't know. I walk to work. My partner walks to work. We walk everywhere. We are doing the green thing that you like to see, but we have non-stop heavy traffic. The number of near misses I've seen, the nightmares I have of people who are nearly killed, it is a hell. It is horrible there. And until you get this truck route situation under control, of which it doesn't look like it's anywhere close, I think every person, any person, who would approve even one more sleeping unit in that area could not do it in good conscience. I feel I was very duped into moving into that area. We spent over $500,000 for a one-bedroom condo. I cannot, in good conscience, even sell that. If I talk to anyone, what is the sleeping, what is the noise? It is a very, very, very serious issue. And there are apparently more high-rise towers along Rideau Street that are approved or will be approved. I mean, what are you doing here? People call it the Bronx. It's not just the noise, it is the nonstop, the lack of greenscape. It is very, very bad. I took one of your nice planning people over. We went one lunch hour and we were comparing what is it like in the Golden Triangle here. I mean, you have beautiful streetscapes with trees and everything. They hide even the ugly buildings. And then where we are, you have none. They've even removed the trees that are along Rideau Street. I mean, this is a very serious issue, the streetscape and the noise. That's one or two major issues. Another issue I'd like to address, 35 seconds, severe lack of visitor parking. So I moved here from Oak Haven, and I see now around the corner, we can notify Bliss Edwards here at the city for 137 Pressland Street. The city is asking for comments, and when you look at that, 298 units, 57 visitor parking. In our unit, 234 Rideau, we have 523 units, 11 parking. By the way, it was approved. Claridge got it for 80 parking, and then Claridge went and sold off 69 of the 80 parking. Apparently, it was $2,500. That's what our condo board president says, $2,500 per parking. So now we are left with a severe lack of parking. I walk everywhere. However, my father's 84. When he comes from the south end of the city, I mean, now it's just so difficult to find parking, he's given up. My brother, who's at Meech Lake, cannot bring his family down anymore. I mean, they have just given up. My sister, who actually sprained her ankle, and now she's out in Nepean, I mean, she can't bring her family. At family functions on Sunday night in the normal rotation, and people, you know, all the nice family stuff, and we bring a potluck, nobody can come by public transit. My 87-year-old stepmother, I mean, it's just impossible. It is a big problem for me and my fellow residents. There is an extreme lack of visitor parking. We do have a temporary parking lot just to the south of us, but on Bezerer, but, well, sadly, and it's another issue, but it is infested by drug dealers and drug users, and I strongly advise none of my family or friends to park there. We really have a very serious visitor parking area issue. With regard, okay, address the green issue. The other one is dogs, which Pat did mention. I am not a dog lover. I don't have a dog. I never intend to. But the reality is there are hundreds, 200 to 300 dogs at 234 Rideau. This particular area that we're talking about is the local dog park. Now, there have been many good improvements. Councillor Fleury apparently was behind getting Charlotte Park, the temporary one park down on Rideau Street. I thanked him very much for that. That's good for those people. They actually have quite a number of small little parks in that area. We have nothing but this. And I don't know what the dogs in our building and the surrounding buildings will do. It is very, very serious situation. So what are some of the ways possibly forward? If I could ask whoever it would be that would or would not approve this potential project, if you could try to separate in your minds the concept of the sixth-floor podium, this marvelous cultural institution, and the tower, especially a tower if people would sleep in it, such as I said, a condo or a hotel. Okay. Now, if you could have the sixth-floor podium, and then maybe in some way we could have a dog park above it, and we could at least get rid of this very serious problem of the dogs. If you look at the dog poop around there, our janitors keep quitting in our building because dogs go poop actually in the stairwell. There is such a lack, a really, really, really serious lack of places for dogs to do what they have to do in our neighborhood, and there's more buildings coming. And realistically, the city isn't going to go buy a lot at very high expense and create a dog park, but you have one here. By this, the last numbers I saw was the revenue for the airspace would be in the order of $3.6 million, which is 10% of the project, which maybe there are other ways that the city could find to scale back the project or find monies from elsewhere. So that's a number of projects. Can I also say I have 100 comment sheets, or over 100, from fellow residents. Can I pass these around? Or
You can give them to, you can...
Okay. So, and
the coordinator will come and get them.
I was active, Pat was active in trying to talk to fellow members. We spoke to, in our two buildings, of the 523 units, about 1,000 people. We have not found not one who supports this project. But the most common reaction that people had, and it really makes me sad and kind of throw up my hands, was people laughed at me. People laughed that I could make a difference. People laughed that the city would care. They say the city is trying to squeeze every little quarter and dime and nickel out of this area, and it's a short-term thing, and you are headed for long-term problems.
Well, thank you for your impassioned presentation. Are there any questions for members of the committee? I'll just ask Ms. Edwards. I was surprised at the comment about visitor parking with respect to the Claridge project and the ability to sell that. If you'd go back and find out what the status or what the issue is with that visitor parking in those areas, and I will respond to you, the president of your condo corporation,
We would like
on
that
issue.
Related to that, so we brought this up last Thursday when these nice people very kindly spent their personal time and came over to talk to us. And I think there were about 9 different people, including the private sector, and I think all of them were really shocked by that. But we had 40 for our tower, 40 for the other. Now we're down to 5.5.
Okay. Well, we're going to get...
But related to this, also, the 2 towers to the west, to the east, so that is on the other side of Cumberland, it's called Claridge Plaza 3 and 4. They've done the same for that.
We're going to find out, and I will. I've endeavored to make sure that the president of your condo corporation, on behalf of all the residents, will get a response as to what the issue is with respect to visitor parking. So we'll do that.
And related to that, if in future buildings you could try to make sure that doesn't happen, because the street parking is
we shouldn't be selling off visitor parking to residential tenancies or to individual units, but we're going to find out what the status is, and I will respond to you.
But so even with all due respect, that isn't enough. They did sell them off to other people in the building, but what that creates is, like myself or Pat and all the others, we believed we were going to have some visitor parking so that people could visit us, and we now are essentially at the situation where visitor parking is non-existent.
We get that, and we understand that. I don't think, and Mr. Smith or Ms. Edwards is going to tell me, but if a proponent comes forward and says he has 50 visitor parking spots, and that is required under the bylaw, he can't sell those 50 or 45 or 30 to someone, to another unit in the building and reduce the visitor parking.
So we lost 69 out of 80.
And we're going to find out what the exact situation is, but I'm pretty sure you...
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, you're right. Visitor parking is actually specified. It needs to be visitor parking.
Right.
What we do see from time to time, and as members of this committee might very well be aware, is requests are made to reduce the amount of visitor parking that might be required for a residential project by virtue of the nature of how the parking garage is operated, and those would be dealt with previously through cash and lieu or through a minor variance or a rezoning.
Yeah, but we'll fight. But cash and lieu and minor variance or rezoning are not selling to other units in the building.
if the relief is obtained to provide the visitor parking, there's access parking, which then
If
could be
there's
sold.
access parking.
That's right.
And that would be the only way.
That's right.
But we'll find out. We're going to find out what the issue is.
Just
So.
to underline how bad a business deal this was for the city, the city got $2,500 in cash per visitor parking.
Okay.
We now have one for sale that's finally come up, and it's $39,000.
Okay. We're going to find out what it is, and we're going to report back to your condo corporation. So are there any other questions for the delegation? No? Thank you very much for your presentation. Mitchell Hall is our next presenter. Mr. Hall? Okay. Members of the committee, do you have questions for Mr. Hall? No? Mr. Hall, thank you very much. There's no more people registered to speak with respect to this item. So the items number 4 and 5 are before us. And on the items then, speakers? Are they carried? Carried. Okay. Thank you. Item, I don't know. Item number 6, yes. Here we go. Item number 6. And we have 2 speakers. Ms. Deschênes, if you'd like to come down. Sure, your neighbor's here as well, okay. If you'd like to come, before he leaves, if he'd fill in a request to speak form so that we can get his name and address for the public record, that would be helpful. So if you'd like to come down. That's it. Press the button on the...
Like so?
Yep. And if you pull the microphone towards you.
Yes. My name is Wendy Duchesne. I live on Robinson Avenue. My husband and I have lived there since 1982, and we've owned a house since 1988. I wasn't necessarily...
Can you speak a bit louder and pull the microphone closer to you so that we're having trouble hearing you?
All right. Do you want me to start again? Wendy Duchesne. I have lived on Robinson Avenue since 1982 and owned a house since 1988 with my husband. I was not necessarily expecting to speak this morning. I'm more of a letter writer. And letters we have written. Many, many of us in our neighborhood. We have signed a petition. We have sent letters, and we've participated in city-organized meetings at which the vast majority have opposed the bylaw amendment to change the story, the allowable height of stories from 4 to 6. I would say that everyone in the neighborhood is quite happy to have development on the street, and we certainly want improvement. What we are objecting to is the change from 4 to 6 stories. Robinson Village is bound by the Queensway on one side, the Rideau River on another, and Dutchess Hole Park, which is which is attached to Strathcona Park on the other side. There is one street going in, and that is Robinson Avenue. The village is composed of 3 streets: Robinson Avenue, Herdman, and Lees Avenue, which is a very small piece of Lees that was cut off when the Queensway was put through. We understand that the city wants population densification in that area, particularly since we're close to the LRT. However, in our opinion, it's very dense there right now. There is really no room to move. The street is very narrow on Robinson. We have issues of parking congestion already, whereas this first of probably 3 developments that will be proposed to you is likely to bring in more than 70 people. And because we have no shops and that sort of thing in this area, we do anticipate that there will be a number of cars added to the village. So parking is an issue. We have stormwater and infrastructure issues down the street, throughout that neighborhood. Snow removal is an issue. Noise, particularly, we're thinking about this as this new building will be renters who will not have the same attachment or respect for the neighborhood, we suspect. Snow removal is an issue. So we have a number of infrastructure issues already that need to be addressed by the city, we believe. With the influx of new neighbors, we anticipate that being even more difficult. So to reiterate, we are not against development. We would like improvement on the street, including infrastructure, trees, that sort of thing. What we are most concerned about is the change from 4 to 6 stories and how that will change the aesthetics of the neighborhood and the already considerable issues there. My neighbor, Alex.
Thank you very much for listening to me. I just want to echo some of the things that my neighbor has said, and I will add that I've lived there since 1980 also, and I have noticed most of the changes. I've seen them now. 16 Robinson Avenue is a 2-floor apartment building. It was built late night 2011. Therefore, I believe the statistics mentioned in the recommendations does not take into account the additional population on 16 Robinson Avenue. Number 2, 1 bunkhouse on 26 Robinson with 6 students' apartment, which, by the way, was a single-family home before. This was built, agreed, in 2010. Number 3, there is another bunkhouse with several rooms on 30 Robinson. This was also a single-family home converted, by the way, with no indoor or exterior physical change in 2012. So again, the statistics which are mentioned in the recommendation, I kind of question them. Number 4, and next to me, on 25B Robinson, is a single 3-bedroom family home converted again with no exterior or interior physical change into a 6 students' bunkhouse in 2011. So I really question some of the statistics which are mentioned based on 2011, whereas some of the properties which have been converted are beyond, were changed after 2011. In addition to that, I want to raise the question of parking that my colleague here raised. As she said, it's a small enclave, one-side parking. We have to remember that there are 2 handicapped parking right across from me. And I truly, and I want to go on record as saying that if we add additional 6-floor building, this is going to be a recipe for an accident, a winter accident, when the snow is not removed. The city does remove the snow, I agree, but it's not fast enough given the population movement, the 2 handicap parking. People have to walk on the streets, and with neighbors putting their snow practically on the sidewalk and sometimes on the streets, I want to go on record as saying this is a recipe for an accident. I used to work and I used to walk on the streets way back when. Now, with the additional population that we are looking at, there will be an accident. I am sure of it. That's most of what I wanted to say, and I think it's a good place to live, and I don't mind the additional, but I think it's going to create problems. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for either of the delegations? No? Thank you very much for your presentation. Mr. Krajewski, if you'd like to come up.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of committee. David Krajewski. I'm here representing and accompanied by Marco Rigo, who is the president of Robinson Park Development Corporation. We view this application as an example of what I would call modest intensification. The site is already zoned to permit an apartment building of up to 4 stories in height, 14.5 meters. Our application requests that the building height be increased by 4.4 meters to 18.9 meters to allow 2 additional stories with a total of 12 apartment units. The site plan that we filed concurrently with our rezoning application proposes 25 units on the first 4 floors, and the 2 additional floors total 12 units for a total project of 37 units. It's our opinion that the approval of this application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, which encourages intensification. The site is in a location that is close to the downtown and well served by transit. We believe that this is an appropriate location for additional density. As noted in Ms. Mahar's report to you today, our application conforms to the official plan. It meets the test with respect to compatibility with its surroundings. It is an infill situation, and in our view, the proposed building will fit in well into the neighborhood. The building itself is, the site is on the north side of Robinson Avenue. Shadows, for example, will fall mostly to the rear of the building during the day and towards Robinson Park. We think, increasing the amount of snow storage that's available at the front of the site. Presently, there are 3 single detached homes with individual driveways. We're proposing a single 7-meter wide driveway on one side of the site, which means that a lot of the frontage is interrupted by driveways. In terms of traffic, yes, there will be an increase in traffic. 37 units generates about 23 additional cars on the street in the peak morning period, and 27 in the afternoon. That's about 1 vehicle every 3 minutes in the morning and every 2 minutes in the afternoon. We had a traffic impact study prepared which shows that the Robinson Avenue has the capacity to handle the increase not only of 25 units, the increase of 12 units and the resultant 37-unit project. Through the project, we have worked cooperatively with the city. We've consulted with the community. We have changed the site plan over time. The upper 2 floors are now set back from the edge of the upper limit of the 4th floor, for example, so that it is architecturally more compatible and it is a better fit in the community. We've also enhanced landscaping to provide some buffering with the adjacent yards. So it's our conclusion, Mr. Chair, that this application has merit from a planning point of view, and we are here to ask the committee to support our application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Krajewski. Are there questions for Mr. Krajewski? No? Mr. Krajewski, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
That's all. Those are all the speakers we have for that item. Is there? So there's no more public hearing for that item. Are there debate, Councillor? Question?
The residents raised the issue about how, that they've got problems already with stormwater, and they're concerned about sanitary, they're concerned about infrastructure, etc. I know the report talks about how that would be accommodated, but can you just clarify, because the applicant basically indicated, yeah, that's no issue, but I want to make sure that we have that reassurance and that the residents who are concerned have that reassurance as well.
Mr. Chair, yes, in terms of the new development, there will be greater control in terms of the stormwater than currently exists, and that's done through a number of means in terms of on-site storage, rooftop, parking lot, different means. So there will be a net benefit in terms of stormwater management on the property.
So the issues that they're talking about that exist already, without this development even being considered, those will be remediated as well, or will those issues
Yeah, there is this project will actually enhance the current situation. There will be less flows in terms of stormwater going to the system.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is satisfied, Councillor? Perfect. Good. Any other questions? So on the item then, is it carried? Carried. Okay. Let's go to item number 8, zoning 460 Saint Laurent Boulevard. We did have a presentation scheduled, but if members of committee would like the presentation, we can go forward. Councillor Clark doesn't seem to see the need for it, but I'm in the hands of the committee. We go to delegations? Okay. So we'll go to delegations. Our first delegation is Harry McKay, followed by Bob Publicover. So, Mr. McKay?
Maybe joined by this John Zinkamp, but
okay.
it looks like he's coming home. I'm not sure if he's bringing him over. No, it doesn't look like it. So we're good.
Okay. Press the button on the microphone in front of you. There you go. Okay. Perfect.
Good morning, and thank you for this opportunity to speak to you. I was president. My name is Harry McKay. I live at 191 Dunbarton Court, very close to the proposed tower. I have been a resident there for 13 years, and I'm past president of the Cardinal Glen Community Association. I was president from 2007 to 2011. Unfortunately, our president is unable to give the report that came out of the meeting of the membership, which was held in July, so I will read you his words as he reported them in his article in the Manor Park Chronicle in the September-October issue of last year. Mr. Publicover wrote, "Residents agreed unanimously that any structure built at 460 Saint Laurent Boulevard, the former site of John Sunoco, must conform to existing zoning for the property and must therefore not exceed a height of 6 stories. Bridgeville is proposing a building of twice the height currently allowable under existing zoning for this site, and almost double the height of the neighboring buildings on the west side of Saint Laurent Boulevard, north of Montreal Road. Clearly, approval of a 14-story building at this location would not constitute a reasonable exercise of flexibility in applying existing city zoning requirements in our community. This was our President's report in September, October. Since that time, he has changed his mind, and it was interesting that in the very same issue, in the companion article, mine article right beside him, if we could go to number 2, I wrote in an article called "Buying Off Community Opposition," under a byline called "Your Opinion Matters." I think this does explain why our president is no longer representing the views of the membership. It really seems odd that a policy meant to help community associations hurts us. Our president has threatened the members will be forced to pay legal costs if we oppose a high-rise tower. He writes, "Recall petition signatories may not have been informed about the risk of legal liability for a court-ordered cost award in favor of Bridgeville and the City of Ottawa." In an email, the president accused the members of lacking good judgment. He wrote, "To oppose a high-rise tower would make the board and our community appear to be poorly informed and less than mature in our judgment."
He's going to have a chance to speak for himself. What we're more interested in is not your interpretation of what he is saying, but more what your opinion of this proposal is, as opposed to critiquing what he may or what he has said in the past, because we're not going to judge, we're not here to judge that, we're here to judge the merits of the planning application before us. So what we'd like to hear from your perspective is the issue of the planning application.
All right. I'd like to move on to the third slide. The picture will show you from the vantage point of the trailer, the Bridgeville trailer, which is very on the left there. And the west side of Saint Laurent is showing the 7-story mid-rise, which is just to the south. And then across Saint Laurent, immediately to the east, is an 11-story high-rise tower, and then an 11-story just behind that one. And then just to the south of that 11-story high-rise is a 23-story, and then another 23-story, and then a 29-story. Now, the report talks about how this site at 460 Saint Laurent is in an area characterized by high-rise buildings, how it is in an adjacent surrounding context, how it is within areas characterized by high-rise buildings, and how it is in a line along the street similar to other buildings. But if you look up in the Oxford Dictionary the definitions of surrounding, surrounding means that the site is encompassed by, encircled by, enclosed by, or in a neighborhood of. And it isn't. We're talking about a major arterial road, Saint Laurent Boulevard, very, very wide. And the developer must agree, because the developer finds the buffer behind the rear wall of the proposed building and our fence line of the nearest neighbors to the west of 25.7 meters, which is the length of 5 parked cars, bumper to bumper, that is wide. Just think how wide an arterial road is of Saint Laurent's dimensions. Also, the word adjacent is used, how it's in adjacent surrounding context. But adjacent means contiguous. It means touching, adjoining. contiguous, uniting. The site does not touch the opposite side of Saint-Laurent. If I may go to the fourth. This is my shadow study. The report finds that shadowing is a prominent consideration when assessing the relationship between the proposal and the surrounding existing neighborhood. They find the adjacent low-profile community to the west, that's us at Cardinal Glen, will not experience undue adverse impacts. The sun shadowing analysis illustrates the proposed building will have a minimal effect on adjacent sites. But look at my picture. It's taken from beside the site. 460 is right on the left. You can see the sign, the city sign, talking about the proposed development. So I'm standing beside the building, and what's behind me is the 11-story high-rise at 230 Brittany Avenue, way behind me, and it casts a shadow of 192 meters or 630 feet. And you can see it very clearly. The tower stretches down Dunbarton Court, and it touches the second row of houses on Dunbarton Court. You can see the sunshine on the living room window of the house on the left there. That's a second row of houses. So 15 houses are currently put in the shade by 230 Brittany Avenue. Just think what a 13-story tower, not 11, 13, closer, much closer to us, is going to cast. My calculation, I'm not an engineer, would be that we will increase from 15 houses in the shade of 230 Brittany to 50 houses in the shadow of a 13-story high-rise tower at 460 Saint-Laurent Boulevard. I think some homework needs to be done here by the planners to address these questions about shadowing, about being in an area of high-rise buildings, and to address the question of the total opposition, unanimous by the membership of the association. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And you're not, so your position on the development is that it's too high?
Yes.
Pretty much, and that would encompass the entire, it's the shadowing effect. And your house is down the Dunbarton Court, is that correct? You don't immediately abut the property?
No, I do not.
Okay. Okay.
No, I'm just to the left, down.
Right. Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. Do you have any questions for the delegation? No. Oh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You're aware that you mentioned 14 stories, and there's only 13 stories in the building?
13 stories.
Yeah, in your presentation you had mentioned 14 stories.
Oh, well, it has changed. Yes, I think that is now going to be a retirement home of 13 stories.
Thank you.
40 meters, that's what's important, 40 meters. Yes.
Okay. So thank you very much for your presentation, and I'll call, I will just a second, Mr. Public Cover, and I think Mr. Zinkin is going to come up with you. Is that right, correct? Yeah, okay. Well, and while you're coming up, yeah, he can come up. Mr. Schmidt, maybe you just want to, or Ms. Edwards, the sun shadowing study. Can you tell me it's been done for the property?
I'll let Ms. Edwards speak to that one, but typically the periods that are of greatest interest is between 10 and mid-afternoon, 10 in the morning, mid-afternoon. Even though we do look at beyond that, I think the presenter indicated that that was an early morning condition, which would not be surprising that you'd have that length of shadow, but I'll let Ms. Edwards speak to the details.
Okay.
Yes, there was a sun shadow study completed, and it does show that, 10 a.m. on June 21st and 10 a.m. on September 21st, there is a shadow that falls across Dunbarton Court, but it doesn't go west into Dunbarton Court.
Okay. So we have a sun shadowing study that is...
Yeah, it was posted on our website.
Posted on our website, done according to the standards and principles of those studies. Yep. Winter solstice, summer solstice, and all that good work. Okay. Perfect. Is that satisfactory, Councillor? Okay.
Communautaire de Glen, qui comprend 144 maisonnettes. Nous avons sondé extensivement notre population et 90 des résidents ont dit qu'ils n'ont aucune objection, aucune opposition à la proposition de Bridgehill comme il soit actuellement. 37 m'ont écrit pour dire qu'ils appuient le demande fortement et M. McKay et ses amis représentent plus ou moins 17 à 20% parce que les numéros se changent des fois. At least one person informed me that she signed one of his petitions, but later felt that she had been misinformed. So there's some numbers that move. We are a unique community. We sit between two cemeteries and a very busy arterial road. There's only a small number of our houses whose backyards abut on the backyards of homes on Pauline-Charon, private, and the only access to that street is by a pedestrian walkway, which we would want to maintain. The result is we see, as a board, we view the numbers and the view of our situation. As a board, we support a 12-story retirement home as proposed now with some considerable modifications, and they're important because, as I say, there are no other communities anywhere in this city, probably not in the province, that sit between two cemeteries and an arterial. And the result is, with this narrow street, we have parking problems already. We've had some hindrance of snow removal already every winter because of existing parking levels, existing visitors. And it's a fact that the way the houses are laid out, it's physically impossible to park between about half of the driveways of about half of the residents. So parking is a key consideration, and we would favor an extra floor of parking be constructed in the complex, or alternatively some creative thinking by staff, and they are capable of that. At the current time, the Highlands condominium, which was shown in the, well, you can see it from here, in fact, in that diagram, have made an arrangement with the Presbyterian Church, which you can see in the lower right of the photo, to allow their residents to temporarily park in that parking lot you see there while renovations are done to the Highlands project. We think we need some creative thinking to designate, work with the church and designate part of that parking lot, or perhaps all of it, through the week as alternative visitor parking. And the church could use revenue from that source. Like so many churches, they're facing a declining congregation and declining revenues. So that's a key issue. We need extra help with the parking, and if we can't have that third floor of parking underground, then we need it. Some kind of a designation elsewhere. You see, you can't park in Saint Laurent, and you shouldn't. You never will be able to. You can't park in the cemeteries, obviously. So that's an issue for us. And again, it's not so much aesthetics, although aesthetics are an issue. It's the matter of access for emergency vehicles, for commercial vehicles doing business with us, for our own residents and our social visitors, if you will. I'm going to ask now Mr. Zincan to speak about another issue that's related here concerning the left turn signal at the corner of Saint Laurent Boulevard and Dunbarton Court, and also Brittany Drive. Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Bob. Hello, Mr. Chairman and committee. My name is John Zincan. I live at 215 Dunbarton, was perhaps the closest, or one of the closest dwellings to this proposal. You can see it on the corner there, just behind the green area, that handsome-looking building. Now, I've been here about a year. I'm 69 years old, but haven't yet quite entered my dotage, which some people may disagree with. But in any event, I want to address the issue of driving north on Saint Laurent and turning into Dunbarton Court, which is what a lot of individuals would be doing who will populate the retirement building going up there. Unfortunately, you can't see it. Now, I've been driving since I'm 16. I have a lot of left-hand turns under my belt, and I'm not afraid to do that. But when you drive north and you want to turn into Dunbarton, which will be the, pardon me? Oh, sorry. Is that better?
That is.
Okay. There's a strange dip and curve in the road coming south on Saint Laurent. So in other words, when you're driving north and you want to turn left and you stop and you wait for the light, and then there's vehicles coming in the other direction who want to turn left onto Brittany, they in effect block your view fairly substantially. Now, we all deal with that in our driving, and you wait and you're very careful, but there is something about that dip and there's something about the curve that makes it, I would say, more dangerous, and quite dangerous. That, when you combine that with the factor of there's a lot of speeding on Saint Laurent. Surely everybody knows that here, I'm sure, but I'm right there in the corner and I can see it, and well over 50% of the vehicles are always speeding on there. So I'm just saying something simple, perhaps with the Section 37 monies or whatever, could solve this problem by an advanced green or whatever. You think Brazil would be interested in this because they want to populate the building with elderly people or semi-elderly people. And that's got to be a major component when you want to sell this thing. So basically, I invite people, or the committee, or the city, to be proactive in this area and make that minor suggestion, which I think would go a long way for safety in the community.
Okay, I'll go on briefly with just a few more items, but to say, yes, that blind spot is a real hazard, and with a large population of elderly people coming to the corner, we are concerned about it. And we'd like to see some creativity there from staff. Okay, we'd also like to see consideration of a concrete wall being placed along the western edge of the property where you see those trees, as opposed to a fence, for two reasons. One, to protect for greater protection of privacy for the residents immediately behind, and secondly, because of durability, because a wooden fence would not last. These are details, but they're important to us. And critically there, we want to save all of those trees if we can, if not all of them, most of them that you see extending between the homes where John lives and the property line, Bridget's property line. And I know from having lived in the community for 13 years and having extensively surveyed our residents, they feel very concerned about that. They're worried about that. Another thing is the issue of we want to make sure that the zoning or the requirements of the plans require that garbage storage be inside the building and not behind, because as you can see, the homes are going to be very close to the rear of the building. So we want that as opposed to having garbage stored outside. That's important to us. Another thing is there's a problem with drainage right now from San Juan Boulevard. You can't see on the photo, of course, but there's a slope there. And we already have a small lake every spring and fall in what amounts to a rink on Dunbarton, just in the area, the western edge of that property. And people are forced to walk out into the middle of the street to go around it because it's very slippery. We need a higher capacity drain there, located preferably just to the west of the entrance to the building. We want that in there along with the turn signal. Let me go on just one step further and say that one of the other uses, in addition to a traffic signal, a left turn signal, that we would like to utilize Section 37 money for trees. We've had a very bad plague of ash borer disease in the community. The city has done its best, but the forestry department's overwhelmed, and we'd like to use 37 money to put up some trees, preferably the fastest growing we can get, to restore the beauty of the community. It's a wonderful place to live. I'm proud to live there and pleased to live there, have been for a long time. We're happy to work positively as an association with and a board with Bridgel to make this project a positive attribute to our community. We do not believe it's in the community's interest to have either a vacant lot or more subsidized housing there. And we're told reliably by a number of sources that at current land prices, we heard that approximately $1.2 million was the price paid for the property, that a six-story building would not be financially viable as a commercial entity. We certainly don't want another. I don't share the view of some of my this minority group here that we should either leave the lot vacant or have more public housing on it. This is an attractive project, and we just think it needs some important tweaking. Speeding mitigation on San Juan would help. The police don't patrol it. I don't know why. We ask, they don't, and that becomes tiresome. But with more elderly people there, we'd like to see that. So that's what I want to say at the moment, and I'm prepared to work with the city staff and with Councillor Clark, who I've worked with, had the pleasure to work with very closely, and continue to work with them to make this the best possible project we can have for all of our residents and for the new residents who will be joining us.
So,
thank you.
Thank you for your submission. I can tell you that some of the items, not necessarily all of them, relate to site plan issues. The concrete wall versus the fence, the garbage enclosure. I'm not so sure about the blind spot, but that's something that we can look at. So we can't make the zoning contingent on the resolution of those things, but what we can give direction to our staff is that when the site plan for the property comes forward, that the issues that you have raised are canvassed and are dealt with. And Councillor Clark has delegated authority to approve that site plan. So it doesn't come back to us necessarily. It is given to Councillor Clark. So you'll be able to work to achieve those goals through that process. It's a much finer grained planning process, so you'll be able to deal with those issues through that methodology. So you're going to get another kick at those issues is all I guess I'm trying to say.
Okay, well, I appreciate that very much, and I thank you. Et s'il y a d'autres questions en français, je suis disponible pour les répondre, non?
Okay.
Thank
Are
you.
there any questions for the delegation? Thank you very much for your presentation. Elizabeth Leslie is next.
Oops. Part of what I have to say has already been said, but I do have a couple more points. As an original resident, I have lived at Dunbarton Court for 24 years. I'm a neighborhood watch block captain, and my late husband, Ian Leslie, was the first president of Cardinal Glen Association. The business about I want to address the dangerous traffic conditions. The business about the left turn has already been addressed, and I know it's been a problem since 1994. This city was contacted by the Cardinal Glen Association, and we've asked for a turning arrow, but we still don't have it. On Dunbarton being a circle, it has only one outlet for all the traffic, so it means that all the personal vehicles, the school buses, the garbage trucks, the moving vans, etc., have to go through this bottleneck to get to Celeron Boulevard, and which is a major, very busy street. The vehicles going into the new building will have to make an immediate left turn into the proposed area. Meanwhile, there are two passageways for the outcoming cars, which will make a very difficult situation, and if there's a blockage, there's no room to maneuver. And so it's a recipe for accidents. You can't have a lineup of cars on Celeron waiting to make the turn. It's a recipe for collisions. During the building process, the problem will be even worse with large construction vehicles going into the building site. And winter conditions with piles of snow will also make the situation worse. Finally, the increased traffic will make it more hazardous for the pedestrians in general, and the park, which is very close by, the Cardinal Glen Park, is well used by a lot of very young children. And if this traffic situation is not solved, it's a detriment to them too. So it's for these safety concerns that I'm here today, and I hope that they are addressed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there questions for the delegation? Thank you very much. I'll just add, as I said to the previous delegation, that some of the issues that you raised, whether the traffic, the functioning of the lights and the advanced turn, would be canvassed through the site plan process, and there would have to be an analysis undertaken to determine how the volumes will move through that intersection as the development is built. So, and that's a process that Councillor Clark will champion, or I guess not champion is not the right word, guide through the approval process.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, David Edwards, if you'd like to come forward.
Thank you very much. I stand as a citizen requesting that City Hall abide by its own bylaws, designed at least then to balance the quality of life of citizens with the interests of developers. At the one attempt at a City Hall meeting in our park at Cardinal Glen 1 year ago this month, the wishes of the citizens were clear. City Hall, please respect your zoning bylaws. A petition was circulated at that time and gained many signatures. I've read the very professional documents presented to us, stuff related to community improvements balanced against higher height of the building. Yet what is fundamentally lacking is the aspect of proportionality. I could possibly understand going from a maximum of 6 stories to perhaps 7 or 8 if other community improvements are done. But to accede to an amendment that is more than twice the existing bylaw, from 18 to 40 meters, a 13-story building, I believe that a retirement residence on that real estate is a good idea, as long as it is more appropriately sized. I request that the Planning Committee do the right thing, respect its own bylaws, and request Bridgeville to come up with a building more appropriate and that does not harm our community. I would at least request a delay so that we can have another community meeting to better understand and provide better comments to the Planning Committee in future.
Thank you very much. Are there questions for members of the committee? No? Mr. Edwards, thank you for your presentation. Mr. Tremblay, if you'd like to come up.
I won't say much. This is more. Good morning. Miguel Tremblay, Fotan Consultants, here with Martin Chénier from Bridgeville. I will be brief. My intent would not be, traditionally staff would have, sometimes does a presentation. I don't intend to go into the policies, simply remind the committee that the property is designated general urban in the official plan, policy 411-9 in particular, directs and encourages intensification in areas that are defined by a high-rise node. In this case, the area is characterized with, sometimes we forget, some of the taller residential buildings within the city, up to 29 stories, closer to the intersection of Montreal Road. The policies do state that you have to be mindful of context. We think we've achieved a reasonable transition, understanding that we front onto an arterial road, but also back onto a low-rise residential community. We have a separation of approximately 25 meters to the rear property lines and actually about 35 meters to the abutting dwellings. So in our opinion, we certainly comply with and embrace the policies of the official plan, recognizing that this is in fact a high-rise node. I will speak to a few of the issues that were raised, and I can give the committee a little bit of comfort that a site plan control application was submitted last week, and that we previously had numerous consultations with representatives of the community association, and we are very aware of some of the issues that they've raised. I won't necessarily speak to them now, but I can give you a bit of an overview as to the previous proposal. It was for a 48-meter building, and we were seeking relief from parking. The two largest community issues were height and parking. So we've reduced the building to 40 stories, initially a 12, now a 13-story building because of the floor heights. 48 meters, previously, and now a 40-meter building. Thank you. And with respect to the parking, we were proposing about 3,000 square feet of commercial at grade. The site plan application now is for a retirement-oriented building. It's still an apartment building, but it's seniors-driven. And we no longer seek relief on the parking. So we are actually in excess of the bylaw by approximately 48 spaces. The bylaw would require 99 spaces, and we have 147 distributed in 4 levels of underground parking and 29 surface parking spaces in the rear. The reason we're using the rear to such an extent for surface parking is there's an existing hydro corridor that actually dictates the form of the buildings to the north as well. So that parking will be available for visitor parking and short-term need parking without burden to the abutting community. The building will be managed by Brazil, so issues related to the maintenance of the fence, and in this case we're relocating some entrance features to the subdivision, can all be done in concert with Brazil, who will be maintaining and owning the building. With respect to the improvements to the signals, we can look at the signal timing, for instance, through the site plan application. The city has secured monies for Section 37. Some of those monies can be directed, if the city feels it's warranted, towards improvements to that intersection. I think that would conclude my remarks. I can gladly answer some questions.
Yeah, I just have a couple. I'm really interested in this seniors-oriented.
Mm-hmm.
Is it, how do you...
That's a good question.
Because it's an apartment building, and if you can't rent it to seniors, you can rent it to anybody else. Nothing that we're doing here today ties you to a seniors building.
It's not a retirement home, and that a retirement home are typically rooming units without a kitchen.
Yeah,
each of the units will...
I know what a retirement...
Yep.
So this is an apartment building.
It is an apartment building, but there's some subtleties to it. For instance, each of the units will have a bathroom and a kitchen. There's also a common dining area that's going to be located in the penthouse, along with a pool and a spa. There will be a meal plan offered by Brazil. They're going to manage the building. So seniors, depending on the level of independence that they want, they can opt into or out of the meal plan, prepare their own meals, or maybe a couple times a week they opt for the meal plan. The first floor also has a nurse's and doctor's office. These are all features that, yeah, maybe a 20-year-old might be interested in, but a little less.
No, but I guess all my point is that sounds very good now, but if those don't sell and seniors don't rent them and they don't use them, there's nothing to stop you from renting to whoever.
Absolutely.
So I just don't, I was getting the sense, and there was a lot of momentum around this is a seniors building. It's not a retirement residence as we would know it.
Under the
Oak
bylaw.
Park, Riverside Gate, and all the ones that are now being constructed. This is an apartment building. Yes, you've got seniors amenities, but those seniors amenities could disappear and it could become a regular apartment building.
Absolutely, and we would still meet all the parking requirements and all those things. The site plan that we submitted last week, if you look at the subtleties, you would deduce it well that is, for now, oriented towards seniors.
Right. I just don't want anyone to come back and say, I thought this was going to be a seniors residence. It's now got whoever they want to walks up and rents it. We had this big debate about how good a seniors building was going to be. Yes, you're doing that, but understand that if it doesn't work, it's an apartment building.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I just wanted to be crystal clear about that. Okay. Are there any other further questions for Mr. Tremblay? Nope. Mr. Tremblay, thank you very much for your presentation. And that concludes the speakers for item number 8, the zoning at 460 Seminole Boulevard. I'm going to close the public hearing portion of the meeting, and we're going to go to the recommendations as they've been presented. And Councillor Clark, do you want to offer any comments for the guidance of the committee?
Yeah, you might note in the report that it says I'm aware of the project. You can bet on it. I've been made aware of it by the people that have done the presentations. We've done 2 over the past couple years studies of that traffic light thing at the corner. The sight lines, I think, may take another run at it because of sight lines, because coming up that hill, you don't see the cars very early. But on the other hand, if there's no left-turning cars in front of you coming southbound, you can see reasonably well. The study showed that nobody had the weight to make their turn 2 lights, so the volumes don't warrant it. But we'll take another run at it. But it's really a site plan issue as far as I'm concerned. The question of whether or not this is too high, I don't think anywhere in the city there isn't a person that doesn't think whatever is going to get built is too high. And I don't know how we're ever going to get rid of that, I guess, fear of what's going on. And clearly, in the mornings, that's going to shadow Dunbarton Court, but past noon, it's not. So the question becomes one of what kind of damage that would do, and I don't know, frankly. I live across the street, so I'm well aware of this area, and this has gone through several iterations, including increasing the amount of parking and doing other things already, so that I think that the developer has acceded to a number of requests before he got here, and I think when we get down to the site plan, there'll be some more conditions that'll have to get met, and I really don't know that I can do anything but recommend the Planning Committee accept staff's opinion.
Okay. Good, thank you, Councillor Clark. Are there any other speakers on this item? No. Is this item carried? Carried. Okay, thank you very much. So we're the only just for committees information. 3 items will be submitted for council's consideration tomorrow. The heritage issue at 325 Dalhousie, the zoning at 5431 Fernbank, and the letter to the NCC. Okay, and so we need to move those to, or waive those to council tomorrow. So Councillor Harder, you'll do that? Okay, is that carried? Carried. Okay. Are there any notices of motion? We have no in-camera items. Are there any inquiries? We did the other business, and we are adjourned. I'll see you back here on the 27th of August. Thank you very much, everyone.